Hi, this is Melanie with Capital Region Independent Media. We're here with Sarah Bernasconi, a student from Selkirk. She attends the University of Mary, and she was in person in Rome at St. Peter's Basilica Square for a historic moment that my guess is she won't soon forget. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you.
Great. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself, and how you came to be in Rome?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you said, my name is Sarah, and I'm a college student at the University of Mary. So, I study in Bismarck, North Dakota, most of the time of the year. However, they offer a study abroad option in Rome. And so, you can study there for a full semester, or they offer this really awesome thing called a Maymester, where I get to come to Rome for just a month, the month of May, and I take one 3 credit class. And this is an opportunity for students in certain majors, athletics, and other time constraining things. And so it's allowed me to have the flexibility to be in Rome. So this means that I've been planning to be in Rome for the month of May for about a year and a half, actually. So this is well before Pope Francis passed away, or we knew that the conclave would be going on during this time.
Well, so it was just fortunate that you happened to be there at this historic moment.
Right. Yes.
Wow. What was the atmosphere like in the square as you were waiting, and what were you doing while you were waiting?
Yeah, so it's definitely interesting. We went to St. Peter's Square 4 separate times in the span of 3 days, I would want to say. So we went once to visit the church just as a bit of a class excursion. And then we went for each ballot that was cast and waited for the smoke. So that means we experienced two black smokes before we experienced the white smoke. And although there was always really good energy and everybody was so excited, and you heard people from speaking languages from all around the world and getting to know each other and meeting people in religious life and young people and old people, there was overall just really good energy, and everybody was awaiting this new shepherd and leader who would hopefully really transition gracefully from Pope Francis into this, whoever this new successor of Peter's throne would be. And so we all, the first night, definitely got a little bit restless as the vote took a lot longer than expected. We were hungry and tired, and you could tell people started to leave. And it definitely had moments where I was like, is this worth it? But in the end, it definitely was, because the energy that day, we had class in the square in the morning, and our professor actually lectured as we sat on the cobblestones in St. Peter's Square. And then that evening, we all came back, which ended up being the white smoke ballot.
What an opportunity. When you did see the white smoke, what did that feel like? You knew that a decision had been made. You would soon find out who the new pope would be, the leader of the church. How did that feel?
It was honestly surreal. And it was funny because there were some pigeons who liked to perch on the rooftop by the chimney, and people would cheer for the pigeons. And every time we would all kind of jump because we thought it was smoke when people would start cheering. And so, just 2 minutes before the white smoke came, there were these pigeons that everybody was cheering for. And we were all sitting down playing a game, not paying attention. And as we were doing that, they cheered. And so we all stood up and we were like, oh, is it the smoke? And it wasn't. So we sat back down. 2 minutes later, it happened again. And this time it was for real. And so some of us were in disbelief. And I was like, oh, it can't be real. But I turned around and I remember looking up and just seeing the smoke start to rise, at first slightly gray and then that pure white. And my heart just leapt with joy. I was like, oh my gosh, this is the moment. We've been sitting here for hours. We've been coming back for days and riding the bus and going through all of this effort to be here for this moment. And so, truly, it was a sense of joy and lightness that I've honestly never felt before. I could tell the Holy Spirit was in that square, and truly, just it was beautiful. And like I said, the energy went from exciting to kind of more hopeful in a way, which was really fitting for the Jubilee year. And I knew that whoever was about to be announced as our new Pope was chosen through the intercession of the Holy Spirit, and truly somebody who would want to shepherd us.
Just for people who are watching who may not be familiar with the process, the white smoke indicates that a new pope has been selected.
Mhm.
Um, and then they came out, and tell me how that went. How did they make the announcement? Was it in what language was it in? And
Sure.
when you found out he was American, wow, that must have been something.
Yeah. It's interesting. Something that you might not know by seeing the videos after the fact or even watching the news is that we saw the white smoke come up. So we saw it and everybody knew Habemus Papam, which means we have a pope. And so we saw it and we knew that there was a new pope selected. However, it's about an hour from the time you see the white smoke to when someone comes out on the balcony and announces that again with the cardinal's name. And then following that, the new pope steps out onto the balcony. And so that hour was a very hopeful time for everybody because truly it's so different from a political election in the sense that no matter who was selected, the entire church was ready to welcome him with open arms. It's that unconditional, positive regard for whoever they've chosen because we put our faith in the church and in God. And so that hour was a really beautiful time of community where we all were just awaiting this new leader. And so they had marching bands coming through, the Swiss Guard was there, the Italian military was there, and they kind of showed the grandeur of this event. And so they come marching in, and during that time, the Pope is getting prepared and putting together a couple of words, getting their vestments fitted and tailored. And so we experienced that, and then at whatever point, the curtain is pulled aside and a cardinal comes out and he speaks in Latin and says, Habemus Papam, we have a pope again. And everybody is just cheering and there were chants going on and we were really, truly just, it's like seeing a celebrity. It's like seeing your favorite sports team player or favorite singer, but you don't necessarily know who they are. And that is also interesting is that when they announce the name, there's a series and sequence of Latin phrases, including that Habemus Papam, but then they Latinize the cardinal's name. And so instead of saying Robert Prevost, Cardinal Robert Prevost, they come out and they said Roberto, and then Prevosta or something like that, where it was Latinized. And it took us a second. We're like, who is that? And even if you are an American Catholic, or any Catholic, you won't be able to know every 133 cardinals in the Catholic Church that were voting during this time. And so it's not something where they say the name and you know immediately who they are. And so it's a rustle in the crowd still of, who is that? I think he's American. I heard he's from Chicago. Oh my goodness, no way. And so everybody starts to talk, and soon enough, everyone's like, that's the American cardinal from Chicago. But it takes us a while to put those pieces together. It's not like white smoke, American Pope. It's like white smoke, I wonder who it could be. This is so exciting. No matter who it is, this is going to be exciting. And then learning that he was American, I know I had a certain sense of pride in my country, in my faith, and knowing that US Catholics make up only 5% of the population. So really, we are an underdog church comparatively to parts of Europe, especially South America, and especially Africa right now. And so hearing that he was American, it restored some faith in, I think, my own doubt of saying, yes, the American church may be small, but we are mighty, and we want to lead in ways that other countries have been able to for so long. And so hearing that he was American, I looked around at my peers and we realized this was the new reality for the Catholic Church, that those among us could one day be Pope, could one day hold Vatican office. That really meant something and connected the American church to the global church in a way like never before.
Wow, what an experience. You're a college student. This was obviously a very impactful event in your life. What will you take away from it? I know you've spoken about it strengthening your faith in your religion and in your church. Can you maybe talk about that a little bit and about how what are the long-term ramifications for you personally?
Absolutely. I think, like I spoke about earlier, there is that unification aspect and understanding that the word Catholic means universal. And so being a part of this experience has truly shown me what it means to be a part of the universal church, the Catholic Church. And so stepping into that square, I couldn't even comprehend the number of Catholics who were there from all around the world, every country. And so it's truly inspiring for me to know that there are people all over the world who practice the faith like I do, who live out the faith like I do, who desire to serve God and serve people the way that I do as well. And it can be hard when you're stuck in your own little world, wherever you are in the country or in the world, and you don't necessarily see that every day. And so for me, I'll be taking this experience home and really just using it as motivation to go out and be a disciple of all nations, to serve others, to love others, and to do what Jesus taught us to do. And so I think it also plays in well with being a college student, because college is the most formative time of your life. And being in the square, I did see a lot of young people, which is also inspiring, knowing that the church is not dying. And even though in America, we tend to see an older population being more devout and going to mass and being involved in parishes more regularly, when you look at the global church, there are so many young people who are also involved. And so that, again, is really inspiring to me.
Great. This may be a hard question to answer because there's probably so many memories that you'll take home from this. What will you remember most vividly? What was the one moment that you think you will never ever forget?
It's a really good question. I think for me, it's the moment Pope Leo stepped out onto the balcony. You know, he stood there for a while taking it all in, which was beautiful. But then the moment I'll remember the most is his first words to the people when he addressed them. And it was in Italian, and I don't know Italian, but I understood enough to hear that the first word he said was peace. He said pace. And I was like, an overwhelming sense of peace kind of came over me, knowing that whoever this leader was, whether I could understand him in that moment or not, whether I knew anything about him, whether he aligned on every little thing that I personally believe or whoever the next person is believes, I knew that his first and foremost goal was peace. And I do believe that that's what we need as a nation today and as a world today. And so that for me was a very breathtaking moment and a very inspiring moment to stand there and be like, yes, peace. And even though I'm in this square with hundreds of thousands of people, I felt that peace. And even though you're squished up against all these people trying to take a picture and get a sight, I was like, oh no, like the Lord's peace is with me here. And so that was the moment that I think will stick with me forever.
Great. Sarah Bernasconi, a resident of Selkirk, attending school at the University of Mary in North Dakota, a once in a lifetime experience that most of us will never even dream of having. Thank you so
Mhm.
much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.